H.G. Roasts. Rachel Zegler. Rachel Ann Zegler, the self-anointed princess of the silver screen, born on May the 3rd, 2001, in the unremarkable confines of Hackensack, New Jersey. Named after a fictional sitcom character from Friends, Rachel Green, no less, which tells you everything you need to know about how deluded this individual is, that even her name comes from something fictitious. She emerges from a blend of Colombian and Polish heritage, a mixed brew that she wields like a scepter in her endless quest for validation. But, oh, how the mighty have stumbled, or perhaps more accurately, how the self-important have tripped over their own inflated egos. In the grand theatre of narcissism, Zegler plays the lead role with such fervour that one might mistake her for a method actor, were she not so awful at it, lost in the delusion of her own grandeur. I'm going to dissect this specimen of rampant self-absorption, highlighting her hypocrisy, her unpleasantness, and the narcissistic tendrils of her narcissism that snake through every facet of her public persona. Let us begin with the foundation, with her insatiable hunger for the spotlight, often at the expense of decency or even her own career. Zegler burst onto the scene in 2018, answering Steven Spielberg's open casting call for West Side Story via X, submitting videos of herself crooning "Tonight" and "I Feel Pretty." From over 30,000 hopefuls, she was plucked at the tender age of 16 to play Maria, a role that catapulted her to fame and earned her a Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy in 2022. She became the first actress of Colombian descent to win that category, and, at 20, the youngest ever. Impressive? Well, on the surface, perhaps, but you'll see that this is a young woman who treats this serendipity not as a gift, but as a divine right, a platform from which to preach, posture, and punish those who dare question her. Consider her handling of the Snow White remake, a project that had become a lightning rod for her narcissistic excesses. In interviews, Zegler lambasted the 1937 original animated classic, decrying its plot as dated because Snow White dreams of true love and is saved by the prince, whom she labelled a stalker. It's no longer 1937, she proclaimed, positioning herself as the enlightened saviour of fairy tales, updating the story to make Snow White a leader who doesn't need romance. How noble, how progressive, yet herein lies the hypocrisy. Zegler eagerly accepts a multi-million-dollar paycheck from Disney, a corporation that was built on the very fairy tales that she derides, profiting from the legacy while biting the hand that feeds her. She hijacks a beloved character, twisting it into a vehicle for her own ideological agenda, all the while ignoring the irony that her empowered version still relies on the original's name and nostalgia for ticket sales. Is this empowerment? My backside it is. It's simply the narcissistic rebranding to centre herself as the hero of modernity. Her unpleasantness seeps through in her interactions with fans and critics alike. When backlash erupted over her Snow White comments, fans accusing her of disrespecting the original and alienating audiences, Zegler didn't reflect or apologise. Oh no, she doubled down, revelling in the attention. In a 2023 appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, she jokingly admitted to being a narcissist while discussing getting stopped for photos at Disneyland's Snow White ride. "I'm a narcissist," she said. Was this awareness? Not at all. Quite simply, her actions speak louder. Fast forward to the film's promotional cycle, and her narcissism blooms fully. Amid the SAG-AFTRA strike in 2023, she withdrew from Paddington in Peru, citing the strike, yet continued to promote her own projects. Damningly, during Snow White's rollout, she injected her personal politics into the mix, posting about Palestine and criticising Donald Trump, drawing criticism from conservatives and reportedly prompting producer Mark Platt to fly to New York to reprimand her. His son, Jonah Platt, later eviscerated her on Instagram, calling her actions narcissistic for dragging her personal politics in the middle of promoting the movie, risking the livelihoods of thousands involved in the production. Naturally, Zegler does this because she only thinks about herself. A young woman who has no true and real experience of life, but yet again believing that she's entitled to ram her views down the throats of anybody that's near her, but utilising a film as her platform for doing so. Not talking about the film, not talking about the fairy tale, but talking politics, talking Palestine, criticising Donald Trump. And Zegler, ever the victim, refused to back down. She once again prioritised her immature desires over team accountability. She has the belief that her opinions are so profound they supersede contractual obligations and collective effort. Tens of thousands laboured on Snow White, from crew to blue-collar workers. Yet Zegler, narcissist that she is, hijacked the conversation. And she did it for her own virtue signalling. Hypocrisy abounds with this woman. She champions causes like anti-colorism in the Latino community, admitting her white Latina privilege in a 2022 statement. "I'm a white Latina. I don't get stopped on the street for the way I look." Yet she weaponises her heritage when convenient, sounding a bit like somebody else we often talk about, where she decries discrimination she faced as a child on social media. Boo-hoo-hoo! All the while enjoying the perks of her lighter skin in Hollywood. Who does she sound like? It's a classic ploy of the narcissist, invoking victimhood to garner sympathy and fuel the ego without any genuine introspection. Posts paint a picture of a glaring diva, caught on camera shooting daggers at people during events, only to then cry, "Smear campaign," when called out. One user has described her as an insufferable entitled actress, I think that's going rather light, who trashed the movie's origin and trashed her career with it, alienating fans by lecturing them as stupid or labelling them. She's bullied co-stars and punished those who don't meet her demands, with a history of degrading others publicly, then demanding that they defend her. Take her Broadway debut as Juliet in a 2024 musical adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, acclaimed, yes, but marred by whispers of diva behaviour. She followed it with Eva Peron in a 2025 West End revival of Evita, a role dripping with irony, playing a real-life figure known for charisma masking manipulation, entirely like Zegler's own public imagination. I guess playing Peron was not really much of a stretch for her. Social media is Zegler's throne. Her X account, @RachelZegler, is a treasure trove of self-aggrandizement. In one post, she shares a photo of her parents viewing her West Side Story costume at Disney, waxing poetic. "They took me here every year as a kid. Thanks for letting me dream." But it's laced with the narcissistic need to broadcast familial piety, turning private moments into public fuel for adoration. When controversy strikes, she pivots to defiance. Supporting Palestine since 2021, she joined Artists for Ceasefire and tweeted, "And always remember, free Palestine," in August 2024. Admirable in isolation, but timed disastrously during Snow White promotion, clashing with co-star Gal Gadot's Israeli background and pro-Israel stance. Zegler knew this, yet proceeded, exposing her hypocrisy, advocating for peace while igniting professional discord, all for the rush of moral superiority. This is the type of the woke individual who's a raging hypocrite and quite frankly makes you sick to the gills with her posturing. When Trump won in November 2024, she ranted about a deep, deep sickness in America, alienating half of her potential audience. Fans called her out for entitlement, labelling her a narcissistic, immature, insufferable brat whose need for virtue clout tanked the film. Indeed, thanks to her, Snow White bombed, earning under $50 million domestically in its opening weekend. Yet, Zegler fired back selectively, ignoring substantive critiques to clap at a fan doubting her soprano skills after a Spain performance, touting her West Side Story accolades instead. She dodged the storm to win petty battles. Her role in The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes as Lucy Gray-Baird, offers another lens. Praised for her singing, but the film underperformed, with some attributing it to her off-screen persona leaking into perception. She decries outdated tropes in Snow White, but embraces a dystopian narrative where her character manipulates for survival, presumably mirroring her own career tactics. In Shazam! Fury of the Gods, she played Anthea, a goddess, fitting given her own goddess complex. Voicing Princess Elian in Spellbound and starring in Year 2K, her projects mix acclaim with controversy, always, of course, circling back to her as the focal point. Even some of her allies falter. Ariana DeBose, her West Side Story co-star, posted then deleted a quote. "Narcissism is not something to be coddled or encouraged." Zegler's defenders, like one ex-fan, admit her flaws. The worst part about Rachel is that she openly encourages to call her out. This is so out of character. Yet, as in a reality TV spat where she's accused of narcissism for overspeaking and seeking validation, she ignores the criticisms, despite saying, "You can call me out." She's been accused of exploiting Ansel Elgort in a weird-ass monologue for pleasure, per an X-thread on her problematic things. She mocked survivors, mugs, hypocritical, given her believe survivors stance post-press tour. When Trump was elected, she wept about her newborn daughter losing abortion rights. Wait, but she doesn't have a child. It was hyperbole, exposing the dramatic need for this twat to insert herself into narratives. She imagines that she's influential, when in actual fact, she's just crazy and horrible. She minimises others' achievements, she withholds support, or redirects focus. In Evita, playing a populist icon, she embodies the hypocrisy. Eva Peron rose on charisma, but Zegler rises on controversy, punishing dissenters. She is everything that is wrong with the young, famous individual that thinks that she knows the world and doesn't, having barely been on the planet. Rather than recognising that she has a position of privilege, she abuses that privilege to ram her message down the throat of other people without recognising her rampant hypocrisy. Once again, claiming to be progressive and empathic, she demonstrates that she's far from those things, that she just utilises talking about certain causes in order to promote her number one cause, Rachel Zegler. Furthermore, we were subjected to her ridiculous facial expressions during Snow White. What was that all about? A manifestation of her inability to act, or was she actually taking the piss by behaving that way? The jury remains out on that, but where they did reach a verdict was that Rachel Zegler is a right pain in the backside, a self-important individual who just happens to be able to hold a note to an extent and was given a platform which she has rightly abused, raking in money while playing the eternal hypocrite. And for that, she deserves this roast.